know a therapist, Rebecca?
What for? I can diagnose myself in a heartbeat. I thought being invulnerable would protect me, so I pushed people away for years, leading me directly to my greatest fear. Being alone is fucking horrible.
I don't get it. Why pay someone to do what a friend should do for you for free? Speaking of, you got anything you want to get off your chest?
No?
Does this scare you?
Yes. You?
No. Green. Choked. Cried.
The truth will set you free. But first it'll piss you off.
Hey everyone, I'm Jake Hawkins and I play Dana Higgins in Ted Lasso Season 2. I want to wish you all a great time at Lasso Con 2.
All right, so we have an incredible agenda for today. The first person that we're going to bring to the stage along with me is Heidi Behr. And I've just got to tell you, while Ted Lasso is theoretically a television show about soccer and football, I think it's probably fair to say that the most prominent theme of Season 2 is mental health. From the introduction of Dr. Sharon to Ted's own struggles to Rebecca's dad's funeral to, of course, sadly, Nate's turn to the dark side, we have plenty of examples of mental health, both positive and negative. Now, most of us aren't mental health professionals, so given the number of startup entrepreneurs I speak with, I probably should go ahead and get a counseling degree just to help them. But when we talk about mental health on Ted Lasso, we're at best informed amateurs. But we have an actual mental health professional here with us today. Heidi Behr, whom you can find at feelpeacenow.com, which is an awesome domain name, joins us today from Winter Park, Florida, where she counsels and coaches individuals and couples. Kevin, who many of you know as Ted Lasso His Life, brought Heidi into our little community and convinced her to join us on stage today. So I got to have another big Lasso Con chat room welcome for Heidi Behr. And Heidi also... So let's start by folks learn a little bit about you, Heidi. How did you become a mental health professional? Briefly, what's the story that got you here today?
Oh my gosh. Well, in ninth grade, I was the advice columnist for our junior high newspaper, Dear Fanny. So way back in ninth grade, I think I was 13 or 14, I guess I was 14 years old. I started, I read Dear Abby and Landers, those advice columns in the paper growing up, and I loved them. When I had the chance to be the advice columnist, it was so, and only the people in the newspaper knew I was the Dear Fanny. So it was a very exciting situation. And what's that?
You were a secret columnist.
Yeah, I was a secret columnist. And then, when I went to college, I wasn't really sure what to study. I studied teaching. I didn't really like it. It wasn't my gig. I found mental health classes and I thought, oh my gosh, this is it. And so I just started to deepen my study in that and eventually became an addictions counselor and then a licensed clinical social worker, went to yada, yada, all that stuff. And I fell in love with it because I love psychological and spiritual well-being, and I love the mix of them. They do mix together like really great peanut butter and jelly, and so I love teaching them and having a private counseling practice. And I love how well Ted Lasso showcases mental health.
Well, that is a great place to start. Of course, this being Lasso Con, I have to ask, how did you first encounter Ted Lasso, the show, and what impact has it had on your life, both personal and professional?
I first encountered the show by listening to Brene Brown's podcast, probably like a lot of people. She's a massive fan of Ted Lasso. And so I was like, what's this show, But Brene is also a social worker. She has her master's and doctorate in social work. She's one of my heroes for sure in the field. And so I was really excited to hear about a show that she liked. And I thought, if she's recommending it, I'm going to look into it. So I looked into it, and it was after, I think I heard her recommendation after season 1 was out. And so I just gobbled up each episode and then just waited for season 2. And then I told my best friends and I told everybody I knew, please watch this. You've got to watch it because I want to talk about it with people. And then I got my husband to watch it, and the same thing. He was so consumed, with happiness, with joy for the vulnerability, the authenticity, the humor, that they mix so much together, and it makes it very real. And I love how much kindness in the show. So yeah, I've been sold on everything about it.
Well, it is pretty incredible. I mean, again, this is a show that has brought us all here today from all around the globe. We've got people in countries all over. So just a phenomenal, phenomenal thing. And of course, season two, big thing about season two is that we bring in Dr. Sharon. As a mental health professional, what do you think of the show's portrayal of Dr. Sharon? What did he get wrong? What did he get right about being a mental health professional?
I really liked that that they kept her professional relationship. I have people in my life who kept saying maybe she and Ted will become a thing, and I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm so happy that they did not cross that boundary. She kept her professionalism, but it's really interesting because she's inserted into this team, and in order to be able to bond with them, right? There's that invitation that the team says, come out with us, Dr. Sharon, and she's okay, one drink. And I think she participates in some social things with them because it's also a therapeutic bond, but she still has her professional boundaries. And I think they've done an incredible job. And it's been interesting that they show her as a real human person with her own anxieties, her own foibles, right? Like that back counter full of liquor bottles, and, she's vision gets on her bicycle that day. That was also really cool that she's talking to, I don't know if it was her therapist or her supervisor. That's a good question that Dr. Bex just asked. And it's possible that really good therapists do have therapists. So I've been in therapy in the pandemic. Most people probably need therapy to get through a tough time, right? So it's great that they show that. It's great that they show her getting support, but they show her having boundaries, and they show her really modeling the importance of relationship building.
I just think it's so funny, right? Nobody ever thinks, oh, you're a doctor, so obviously you can never get sick or have anything go wrong. And yet for therapists, we have this opinion, oh, you must have that. You must not have any problems whatsoever.
No, we are humans, and we have problems just like everybody else, and we need support and love and connection. And the show really gets connection right. They show that the people who are the healthiest are the people that are connected to others, have deep relationships with others. Those are the healthiest people on the show.
Well, let's talk about some of the people on the show. Obviously, mental health is at the heart of the show. So as you were watching and binging season one and then waiting and watching season two, what did you think about his journey? Like, what was your professional reaction as you saw this story unfold?
Ted's journey?
Ted's journey.
Yeah, I was one of the things that I loved about season one was when they showed how this scene in the bar when he said every day or every Sunday my father go play darts, right? So you heard about this very nurtured relationship that he had with his dad, and so it seemed very sweet. And then it's revealed that his father committed suicide. So the quandary that he's had in his heart about leaving America, leaving his son, I mean, it all just catches up with him so hard with those panic attacks. When he has the first panic attack, and we're not really sure why, but the series starts to show the little flashbacks. He's thinking about his son, he's thinking about his dad, he's having terrible grief and terrible guilt about not being there, and he still has terrible anger and upset with his own father. And so I think he has handled it incredibly well because it's real. It's real. Sometimes I work with people for a while before they finally reveal something to me, like Ted finally reveals to Dr. Sharon, my father killed himself. And I was like, aha, okay, like, got it. Like, now I understand. That was such a pivotal moment in the show.
Yeah, it was funny during the various clubhouse sessions we had, and Tim remembers this as does Thea. For months in advance, I was saying Ted's dad definitely committed suicide. That's the core trauma. Ted's dad committed suicide. And I also think it's going to eventually come out that Ted's dad was an alcoholic, given, like I said, what kind of dad takes his son to a bar all day on a weekend day? It's a dad who needs to be at the bar for other reasons.
Yeah.
So obviously, I think there's still a lot more to be revealed.
Yeah, there's a lot to be revealed, and I'm so impressed with the show, continuing to talk about mental health in different ways. There's grief and loss with many characters. There's forgiveness issues with many characters. He's not the only one with anxiety on the show.
Well, this is a great segue, right? Because we just talked about Ted and his relationship with his father, especially both his parents And relationship with parents, especially fathers, are
Mhm.
so pivotal to this show. And
Oh, yeah.
whether it is Ted or Rebecca or Nate and so on and so forth, Jamie, I mean, the list goes on. So, what do you see on the show in terms of those relationships with parents, especially fathers? And what do you see in your real life practice? Like, what is it that makes this so important?
Well, when we're born into a family, our deepest desire is to feel a sense of belonging, to feel accepted and loved. And so, little kids, when they're raised well in a safe, loving place, their parents mirror back to them that they're loved and taken care of and accepted. But parents who are struggling themselves will they can kind of do a bad job of that, right? So, Jamie's father has done a horrible job, right? Jamie still wants his father's approval, in that scene, when his father comes into the locker room at Wembley, the training room. Oh, I just wrote about it on a post on Instagram. I kind of unpacked that a little bit because there he was, just torn up. He didn't even really want to give his father tickets to the stadium, but he did because he's like, I need my father's approval. I still want his love. And so many of us, no matter how old we are, we want that from our parents. Even if our parents have done a not so great job at showing up for us, not like giving us love and belonging, we really need that. It's biological imperative for us to have a sense of belonging to our group. So it's a lifelong yearning, and people will want that even from parents who consistently show that they're not great at it. It won't stop our desire to want their love. So I see that a lot in therapy, and one of the biggest things that helps people shift out of that desire to keep reaching for what's not there, they keep going to a dry well. One of the things that helps is when people have a sense of recognizing their parents are human, they have flaws, they tried their best, they didn't know how to do it differently, and then that person has an opportunity for forgiveness. And it's really incredible then that someone can let go of wanting their parent to have to show up in a way that the parent's not able to. So it can really be a pivotal moment in a person's growth, to have compassion for their parent rather, and for themselves, to say like, it's still okay that I want that love and acceptance, but you got to go where it's at. Maybe it's friends as family instead of that family of origin sometimes.
Yeah. And I think look, I mean, this is the whole thing that has brought us together today. I mean, I think all of us are a found family, a community of people who
Yeah.
believe in message support. And I think,
Yeah.
ironically, on a meta level, in many ways, our relationship with Ted, the character, I think for a lot of people, the relationship with Ted, the character, was like, oh my gosh, this is like the father I've always wanted. This is a high status white man who actually uses his power for good. And this is one of the things I think made people struggle a little bit with season two, because like, no, Ted is awesome. Ted is great. I don't want to see him struggling. I want to see him just like we want to see our father as this heroic figure, infallible, unstoppable. We don't want to see our father struggle. And yet that puts tremendous pressure on that father figure.
Yeah, it really, really does. And of course, we want Ted to be this incredible hero, but we're seeing he's a human who now has this opportunity in midlife, which honestly, now that I'm 57 years old, and I'm like, oh, midlife's a thing. And I see that with a lot of clients. I have a lot of clients in their 40s and 50s, and people are really finally like working some stuff out. This is what we're doing in our midlife. We're coming. They have the opportunity to make some peace with the past. And so, in fact, I had named my business. Well, my business name is Feel Peace Now. My website's now HeidiBehr.lcsw.com. But my business name has been Feel Peace Now, because we have an opportunity to make peace with the past if we avail that to ourselves. So I love that he went to therapy. He was learning breathing techniques. He was trying them. Remember that one time they're like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm doing my breathing techniques. I thought Roy asked, Ted, are you sick? And he's like, no, I'm breathing, so he's trying to change.
Absolutely. And I think, many people, especially, I think there are a number of your friends who are also mental health professionals on the line. Everyone knows about the research that shows the U shape of happiness. And my understanding is the bottom of that U of happiness tends to be, at least in our modern Western societies, at the age of 47. Happens to be my exact age. So I definitely want to make sure I'm a part of this Ted Lasso community.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I love. This has been an incredible conversation, but we can't put it off any longer. We have to actually talk about Nate in
Yeah.
season 1 and 2. It's a painful subject for many of us. I mean, I think for a lot of people, season 1, Nate's like one of their favorite characters. He's incredible. So, how can we better understand his turn to the dark side? And do you see hope that he'll change for the better again? He'll come back to us.
I really believe that this show is about redemption, and I think all the best stories have that theme of redemption in them. You know, series, books, movies. It's just incredible that because redemption is part of the human condition. We have an opportunity to, while we're alive in Earth School, we have an opportunity to get it right, and I think that Nate is gonna get it right in season 3. But you know, he didn't even feel himself worthy of having a name in the beginning of season 1, right? He's like, you know my name? You said my name, right? He didn't even feel worthy to be called his own name. And then we see him start to, you know, it's like Ted's pouring some water on him. He's like a wilted flower, and he's starting to perk up like a happy flower, and he's feeling a part of things. But we see his relationship with his own father, right? He's not recognized by his own dad, so he starts to feel fathered by Ted. And then Ted has those times when he doesn't show up for Nate.
Yeah.
And Nate is just crushed by that. And we've seen how Nate, when he doesn't feel good, his go-to is anger, right? In the bathroom, he spits at himself in the mirror when he's angry at himself for not talking in a confident way to the checkout lady at the Greek restaurant, or, you know, a few other times. So his own lack of self-worth, his self-hatred, his own feeling of not being worthy enough, which is a really common thing. So many people haul around a feeling of not good enough. We just like carry it with us. This invisible knapsack of not good enough, and it's heavy. And he leaves it right at Ted's feet. Says, "You showed me I was good enough, then you showed me I wasn't again. You broke my heart." Is essentially what happened.
Yeah. So then Vicky was just in the chat room was just saying something that I feel myself, which is Nate can't bring himself to express his own anger with his father, his biological father, who is just so unsupportive of everything he does. I'm sure he loves Nate, but he's decided, despite being somebody who's like so warm with his wife, I'm just going to treat my son like a piece of crap. And Nate has all this anger built up, and he releases it on Ted and releases it on other people. He does not release it on the person who's actually primarily responsible.
I think that's such a great point. Thanks, Vicky, for that up. And it's so right on point. A lot of times when we don't feel the person who we have our upset with is safe, we will take it out on somebody else. It's not an uncommon experience or not an uncommon situation. So I think maybe deep down he believes, right? You showed me I could be loved, then you sort of took it away. And when Ted's asking, he's saying, "What did I do?" He's actually even opened the door for Nate, right, to say, like, "Tell me what it is."
Yeah.
So I have hope
And
for
Ted, the way Ted reacts to Nate is so incredible, right? What do I need to learn here, right? What a remarkable phrasing.
what a question. What a question. What do I need to learn here? Nate's like, "Yeah, I'm going to tell you. You let me down severely." But I do think, you know, Nate, yeah, he's gone over to the dark side, right? Because Rupert is this, like, you know, everybody needs like their Darth Vader-y kind of a guy, and he seems quite evil. But I think Nate's going to be one back to the light. The force,
Exactly.
the force is with him somewhere down there.
Well, you know, and Nate. So again, to somebody, Andrea was just saying Rupert is Vader. Actually, in the Star Wars mythology, Nate is Vader or Anakin Skywalker, and Rupert is Palpatine. Which brings up the question: why is Rupert such a terrible human being? What do you think is behind that?
I think there are some folks who, from so early on, they're so mistreated or that something doesn't go well for them, and they find anger as their power, and they find abuse and control as their power, and that's a tool that works for them, and they stick with it.
It's unfortunate, but you know, we saw in many ways, Rupert is a cautionary tale for Rebecca, right? They both come from a quote unquote posh background. It's Rupert corrupted by the Hellmouth. Some Buffy the Vampire Slayer humor. They're very nice, Drake. They come from this extremely wealthy background. They have probably Rupert had a distant father because that sort of goes with the package and in that part of society. And he turned to anger. He turned to causing pain to others. And he did that to Rebecca and hurt people. Rebecca was going to turn around and do that to Rupert through the club, regardless of how many people. And fortunately, she was able to find redemption through learning from being with Ted and the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Toxic masculinity. Great point.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Go ahead.
So one final question, because I know we're on time. And again, feel free to let me know, Tim, how we're doing in time. So I want to make sure we get that right. And I'll speak up a little bit because I heard one thing saying that my mic was a little quiet, which it is. So we've talked a lot about some of the problems that people have. So who would you say on the show is the healthiest, right? Who do you look at and say, okay, even though everyone can use some help, that person really feels like they're healthy? I always think it's Higgins, for example. I think Higgins really seems to be so great at helping others and understanding himself. But who else do you think on the show is just awesome at that?
I love Higgins' character. I love his relationship with his wife, how he is as a dad. He's very, very sweet. And what's been interesting is we've seen his evolution, right? So he gags when he feels like he can't say something, or if he feels like it can't come out right? He has that gag reflex. But I think Keely is, I think, one of the healthiest, because she has a terrific relationship with her body. She has a terrific relationship with friends. She's happy to make friends easily, right? She sees Rebecca and she's like, I think you're strong but prickly, so she lets herself just become and make a friend with her, and she accepts input, and she asks for help, right? She goes to Higgins and Higgins says, is the last person, but when Higgins gets it wrong, he's like, is it this? And she's like, no. And she sticks with it. She doesn't put him down. She has a great way of dealing with so many people. I think it's very possible that she could be one of the healthiest characters on the show.
Absolutely. She's just amazing. It's funny, by the way, before this happened, Tim and I were texting back and forth, and he was saying comparisons like, which 3-person group would he and Thea and myself be? I said, it's really Ted and Rebecca and Keely. And I'm like, Rebecca, Sassy, and Keely. And I told Tim, you're Sassy. And Thea is Rebecca. And of course, because I was choosing the trio, I could be Keely. So I love Keely so much.
Yeah, she's terrific. And that little friendship trio is just magnificent, isn't it? Gosh. Beautiful female friendships. And
yes, I wish we had more time. I mean, my God, this is incredible. I think we're going to have to do a separate podcast of some kind, Heidi, so we can really talk about these things in greater depth. Would people like that in the chat room? Would you like us to do a podcast with Heidi about mental health and Ted Lasso?
We didn't even talk about panic attacks and anxiety disorders and how treatable they are. We didn't talk about any of that, and it's incredible. I'm just so pleased that they're bringing up mental health. They're bringing up grief and loss. They're bringing up suicidal, those kinds of things. They're normalizing that this is a part of our human life, and that therapy helps. Therapy works. #therapy works. Like it does. I love what I do. I've been doing it for over 30 years, and the reason I do it is because it's a joy to see people thrive and flourish as they heal with what's plagued them, what's been burdensome for them in the past. So yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you so much. It sounds like the people have spoken. We are absolutely going to have to do a special podcast episode about this. There are other folks asking, okay, how did we even talk about Beard and Jane? I just want to let you know, those are my extra questions. I wanted to talk about Beard and Jane and portrayals of sex and positivity. We just don't have time. But Lasso Con 3, I'm sure, will just be around the corner. And Heidi, I hope you'll come back for that.
I will. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, everybody. Love y'all. Love this community.
Heaven knows I tried.